Alrighty, about 2 weeks ago I posted a brain teaser and I said that I would post the answer in a week or so. Turns out that was 2 weeks, so sorry about that delay. I will link that video in the description, and if you want to skip past all the background, you should jump to 750 where I state it. I'll restate the problem very quickly here though. The question is, if I compress a volume of air, if I take a fixed volume of air and I compress it 10 to 1, and I do that fairly quickly so that it's basically an adiabatic compression where I don't lose any heat during the process of compressing it, the air will become much higher pressure and higher temperature. If I hold it at that compressed state and allow it to come back to ambient temperature, it will lose energy as heat. And the question is, how much of the energy that I took to compress it will I lose as heat? My guess when I first started thinking about this problem a long time ago was that maybe I would lose 10 or 20% of the energy that I put in as heat. When I started looking into it, it turns out that you lose 100% of the energy used. So I spend a certain amount of energy to compress the air. I let it cool down. I still have air that's at 10 times the pressure because it's at 1/10 of the volume. So once it comes back to ambient temperature, P1 V1 equals P2 V2. So all the energy that I put in to do that is lost as heat. But I still have high pressure air now that I can use to operate my pneumatic tools or do other work. And I know that that sounds insane. It sounds like over unity, perpetual motion, etc. And it's not. That's why I find it to be such an interesting brain teaser. And the reason it's not over unity is that the energy that's lost as heat ends up being the energy that is used again to operate those tools. So if I now operate tools on that pressurized, using that pressurized air, that air is either going to get cold itself if I expand it quickly, so its own heat then is what operates the tools, or if I expand it slowly, it will take heat back in from the atmosphere where it had lost the heat to. So I've got this pressurized air that has no more energy than before I pressurized it, and that seems extremely counterintuitive to me because it seems very much like a spring. If I push the plunger in on a syringe and I let the pressure off, it'll push it back out, even if I wait for it to come back to ambient temperature. In the case of a spring, I've stored potential energy in the spring. In the case of the air, once I've let it come back to ambient temperature, there's no more energy in the air than there was to begin with. What there is, however, is lower entropy in that air. The air is now in a much smaller volume. It has the same energy that it originally has, or that it originally had, but it has that same energy in 1/10 of the volume. So I have a concentration of energy in that air. And that turns out to be a low entropy situation. So it's not that entropy can do the work, but entropy turns out mediates the available energy, the flow of available energy, or what's sometimes called free energy, not to be confused with over unity or you get something for nothing. You don't. There's nothing new here. There's no violation of physics. Again, just something counterintuitive. And one thing I certainly learned from this is that every time I think I understand entropy, it turns out I don't. So I started to go down a rabbit hole on entropy. I ended up speaking with a friend of mine, Dr. Eric Mickelson, who teaches physics at UCSD. So I'm going to go ahead and link to a video that I did with Dr. Mickelson, where I asked him to delve into the entropy question because he's far more qualified than me to do that. Turns out there's a lot of videos online about entropy. Most of them are incomplete or have errors. I'm sure that will be true of this one as well. But I think that he does add something to the discussion that is very worthwhile. So if anyone has an interest, is very easily amused, and sufficiently bored, I suggest they check out this video, which is quite a bit longer. And like I say, I'll link that video in the description. So I wrote a very simple program in straight C to go ahead and compute this result, and all it does is follows the basic gas laws, as I compress the gas quickly and then as I let it cool down over time until it reaches ambient temperature again. I'll go ahead and post the source for that program directly in the description for anyone that cares to play with it. And this is the result from that run where I compressed it at 10 to 1. So in this case, the blue line represents the pressure of the gas, and you can see that it starts out around 14 psi at time 0. It raises to a pressure of over 200 psi after compression. The temperature goes from 60 degrees Fahrenheit to over 320 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you can see that I start letting it just cool down while holding the volume constant. When it cools down, you can see the blue line comes back to about 140 psi, so 10 times the initial, while the temperature returns back to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, the original ambient temperature. And again, you can play with the program, modify it, verify it, and see what you make of it. I did end up discussing this with a couple of my science YouTube heroes, and I was actually pleased to find that they also found it very counterintuitive. I was very pleased that they were interested and willing to discuss this with me, and I very much appreciate them doing that. So that's it for this one. I will probably post some more brain teasers because I really enjoy these, and I look forward to your comments, hopefully civil. Until next time, thank you.